The Mars Project, a human success story or a catastrophic failure? Mars colonization, a misguided endeavor. Extreme environmental challenges. Mars presents overwhelming obstacles for colonization, including a thin atmosphere, extreme temperatures, dust storms, and a complete lack of magnetic field. The absence of a magnetic field is perhaps the biggest obstacle. Without it, Mars cannot shield inhabitants from harmful cosmic and solar radiation, which would be catastrophic for long-term human survival. Radiation exposure. The lack of a magnetic field means that cosmic and solar radiation would directly hit the surface, exposing any colony to high levels of radiation. This would severely impact human health and damage infrastructure. Any attempt to establish a sustainable colony would require massive, ongoing efforts to protect from this radiation, which is a technological challenge that seems unrealistic with current or future resources. It would take millions of years to achieve these capabilities, millions of years that we don't have and could not afford to waste. Lack of resources. Mars offers very little in terms of readily available resources. It has ice at its poles, but accessing water and creating a self-sustaining ecosystem would be incredibly difficult and resource-intensive. The lack of vision and ignorance of proponents. Short-sightedness and ignorance. The proponents of Mars colonization often seem to lack a true understanding of the immense environmental, technological, and financial hurdles involved. Their vision seems driven more by idealism than practicality, with little regard for the realities of space colonization. Some key figures, driven by personal interests or ignorance, or perhaps mental illness, may not fully comprehend the catastrophic risks that such an endeavor could pose. A catastrophic mistake. The idea of focusing humanity's resources on Mars colonization is a disastrous mistake. It's a misguided pursuit that diverts attention from more feasible and necessary space missions or Earthbound efforts that would have a greater chance of success and more immediate benefits. The argument is that the personal biases and self-interests of influential figures in the space industry could lead humanity to squander precious time and resources, resulting in a failed mission that undermines our ability to address the real challenges humanity faces. The superior alternatives, Europa and Titan. Moons of Europa and Titan as viable alternatives. Instead of Mars, moons like Europa, Jupiter's moon, and Titan, Saturn's moon, offer much more promise. Europa has a subsurface ocean and protection from radiation due to Jupiter's magnetic field, while Titan has an atmosphere and liquid methane lakes, offering potential resources for fuel and building materials. These moons are much more suitable for colonization, as they have resources like water and energy that could support long-term human habitats. Better stepping stones for space exploration. Europa and Titan offer more viable bases for human settlement and interstellar exploration, as opposed to the barren, hostile environment of Mars. Colonizing these moons would provide humanity with better resources, protection from radiation, and a higher probability of long-term success. Interstellar exploration would be more accessible from the edge of the solar system, making expeditions to other planetary systems, like our neighboring Proxima Centauri, and its possible habitable planet Proxima b, a more plausible scenario. Why Mars is a waste of resources. Unrealistic goals. Mars colonization represents a dangerous diversion from more feasible goals. The effort required to create a self-sustaining base on Mars would drain immense resources, both financial and human, while the likelihood of success remains extremely low. The idea of using Mars as a stepping stone to the stars is highly improbable due to the small size of any possible colonization attempts by humanity, the lack of resources, and the difficulty in building infrastructure in such a harsh environment. Failure to address Earth's challenges. Investing in Mars colonization could ultimately be a waste of time that prevents humanity from solving immediate existential challenges here on Earth, like climate change and resource depletion. A critical perspective on space exploration. Humanity's survival and long-term goals. Although not in opposition to space exploration, we believe the approach must be realistic and pragmatic. Focusing on Mars colonization is irrational and short-sighted, and risks wasting humanity's best efforts on an unrealistic and dangerous project. Instead, the focus should be on moons like Europa and Titan, which offer far greater potential for sustainable habitats, and can serve as stepping stones for deeper space exploration. Personal biases and corporate interests. The push for Mars colonization could be influenced by personal and corporate interests, which may obscure the practical realities and make the project more about profit, fame, or legacy than about the future survival of humanity. This lack of vision and understanding could ultimately be disastrous for the human race, leading to a misguided focus on Mars instead of making strategic decisions based on what's truly possible and beneficial. Conclusion. Mars, with its hostile environment and lack of resources, is not a viable candidate for colonization. Europa and Titan, with their abundant water resources and better environmental conditions, are far more promising alternatives. The push for Mars colonization, driven by short-sighted vision, corporate interests, and personal biases, risks leading humanity into a catastrophic mistake. Instead of focusing on an unlikely Mars mission, humanity should redirect its efforts toward more feasible, resource-rich destinations that offer a higher likelihood of long-term survival and success. The focus should be on sustainable exploration with a clear, grounded understanding of what is possible, rather than clinging to the misguided fantasy of Mars colonization. The term brilliant minds should be reserved for individuals who propose solutions that are grounded in reality, capable of delivering lasting impact. In the case of Mars, many are driven by the idealistic allure of colonizing a distant planet rather than by an objective, pragmatic analysis of the resources and technologies required for such an endeavor. The lack of serious debate about the feasibility and real value of Mars colonization is a mistake, especially when we could instead focus on more viable alternatives. The view that Mars colonies would be a testing ground is easily debunked with the notion that the same testing ground that may be achievable on Mars can be achieved on the Moon at a fraction of the costs and efforts required by the difference in distance between these two candidates. This discussion highlights the need for a realistic, pragmatic approach to space exploration, ensuring that resources are directed toward destinations and projects that offer the greatest potential for success and survival for the human race.